Welcome to Cage Minds. I'm Micah Frankel, and today we get to start off the year by talking to one of the men that's going to start off the year in the main event for BKFC. The first bare knuckle card of 2024 is going to be a Prospect Series card here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Revel Entertainment Center main event. Donald Sanchez, the local guy, the veteran BKFC fighter on the other side, Noah Cutter, our guest today. Thank you, sir, for the time. How you doing?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me.
My pleasure to get to talk to you, sir. BKFC Prospect Series. It's something that I've heard of. I saw the first card down there in your area in Florida. There's been one in the UK. I got the press release. I wrote about it. We got it and it said Prospect Series card. For the guys that weren't able to get on a BKFC card that had kind of attracted some attention during the tryouts, this is for you to break the mold. So, in that notion, it surprised a lot of us with the spectacular announcement of what this card is going to look like January 27th. We got Starling versus Savage. That's a fight that the fans have wanted. We got Pi High versus Dotson. You know those names if you're a BKFC fan. And then this main event had everybody going nuts because you got 9 fights under the promotion. Donald's already got 2 under his belt. To everybody, this doesn't look like the Prospect Series. So were you told anything talking about taking this fight? Hey, we're taking the Prospect Series in another direction, or was it straight up, hey, here's the main event offer, here's the fight for you?
Yeah, they actually just offered me the fight, and then I've been kind of waiting around for a fight. I had a couple offers come through for Virginia and then for Florida, but they ended up falling through. So I've been kind of waiting on a fight, and then the matchmaker hit me up and was like, "We got a fight for you in New Mexico if you want to take that," and told me the opponent. And I was like, yeah, like I normally do. I'll check it out and I'll get back to you. And then it wasn't until after we kind of get the ball rolling that it was going to be, I realized it was going to be a prospect series and that we were going to be the main event. So I was kind of, they didn't really tell us, or they didn't tell me at least, that it was going to be like the main event of a prospect series. They kind of just like came to fold like that. I knew it was the main event before I signed the contract, but yeah, when they offered it to me, I didn't realize what it was.
So were you expecting as it's developing to get this heat from the internet crowd, a lot of people up in arms about the fight and being on a prospect card again?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I even literally, when I seen that it was a prospect card, I had to ask the matchmaker. I was like, I thought prospect was like for people, fighting for contracts and shit. Like, I already did that, on my first fight at the toe of the line, which was basically like the first version of prospect series, you know what I mean? And he was like, yeah, no, we're redoing it. It's going to be more like an ultimate fighter card to where you got guys competing for the contracts, but then you got guys, to make an event. You can't just have a whole event with guys competing for contracts. So to make the event, we're going to have fighters on the roster competing in the main events, and then the undercard fighters competing for their contracts. And I think it's a great thing, man. And people have their own. For one, people are confused about it and they don't get it, because I've had a lot of people asking me like, "You're on the roster. Why are you on a prospect series card?" Thinking that you're competing for a contract. And it's like, yeah, no, I've got 9 fights. He's got 2 fights. We've both been in the organization. We're just fighting in the main event. And I like it because, yeah, it gives other fighters like myself more of a chance to be higher on the card in a main event status. Even though it's a prospect series card, I couldn't maybe main event a regular BKFC card there. So for me, it's great.
So I feel like there's almost be a little bit of a rebranding, like these are the new BKFC fight nights, how we have the numbered ones, and this is something different because this isn't a true prospect series with, like we said, you established names. I understand you established names. You get people in the door. You're going to get people tuning on the app because you got to be really hardcore if you wanted to dive in on the app on a Saturday night of taking in prospect series. So I could see the name recognition and all of that. Do you feel like maybe we should call this like fight night, a little something different?
I mean, I just wish that they would have marketed it better. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm on the roster, and even when you just mentioned that first card that they did in Florida, now that I'm thinking back to it, I remember watching it and being like, well, some of these guys are in the organization already. Like, what's going on? I don't really understand what the what's going on with the card. So I kind of just wish that I like, the idea of the Prospect Series card. It's just like an Ultimate Fighter card. You know what I mean? And people are probably still confused by that and don't realize that the main events of Ultimate Fighter cards are guys already in the UFC. So I just wish they would brand it a little better. And now also there's like the Prospect Series amateurs, which they just did. So now there's like another even subsect of this, which is even something different. And you got to go watch it. I didn't even end up watching that, but I thought it was bare knuckle and this guy's fighting with like kind of like karate style gloves on in a ring. So I just wish they'd kind of market it a little better and explain it to people a little bit better. But I like the branding. I just wish they'd, you know, make a commercial and be like, these guys competing for contracts, and then, these guys in the organization kind of fighting in the main event.
You're fighting in the main event. You get this opportunity. You've been there for 9 fights. How do you feel when you're looking over that paperwork and like you said, you did realize before you signed it, the main event, that's cool.
Yeah, man, it's great. You know what I mean? My last fight for me, I feel blessed. Like my last fight was a co-main event on a regular card, and I fell short in that fight. So to get the opportunity to be a main event in a Prospect Series card, like I said, I feel truly blessed to be able to get the opportunity. And I think it just kind of like goes to show the organization does have some faith in me to be a good fighter and an exciting fighter, and they know that I am. It's so yeah, I was really excited and felt blessed, man, to be able to get the opportunity, and hopefully it's going to lead to more opportunities. And I feel like it's a great opponent for me. The last fight, like I said, was a co-main event, but I feel like the level of opponent was like way higher. So it's kind of like I'm taking on more of a risk with less height on the card, and now I get more height on the card and less of a risk in the opponent. So
You said when you got the name, you took that moment, you went and looked over a couple things. What did you see and what have you seen that finds you liking this matchup against Donald Sanchez? A very experienced guy, has like 50 MMA fights. He's dipped his toe into the boxing world. Like we said, this will be his third in BKFC.
yeah, I didn't have to think too much about it. Like usually, well, it depends on who the fighter is. Like obviously the more fights they have in BKFC, the more likely I'm to know about them. And I've seen their fights, and I actually saw his last fight the night that it happened because it was a common opponent that we both have fought. And to be honest with you, like I look back at his record and seen that he's been in Bellator and he's like a 50 pro fight vet. And respect to him and everything. Congratulations to his journey so far. But I really watching him in the BKFC fight, the last opponent, I didn't think that he was a seasoned vet. I thought the performance was kind of lackluster. I know the air is a lot thinner, it's a lot higher elevation over there. So they were um both tired, but like I said, it's a common opponent. It's an opponent that I was able to finish in the second round. And he looked like he was throwing up in his corner in the fourth round and the fifth round. And so that just kind of tells me that not Donald, but the other guy. And that just kind of tells me he was so exhausted and Donald still couldn't get him out of there. So, he's got a lot of power, just like my last opponent, but I wasn't overly impressed by his performance. And I haven't even gone back and watched the Jeremy Smith fight yet. I think that performance was even worse than the win. So, you know, he got good technique and he got good power, but I think that he's not the most impressive fighter, in my opinion.
There was a couple fights in between because Blake is an active guy. Do you feel like that Blake that took on Donald was the same one that you saw?
I think he was worse, in my opinion. To be honest with you, like I said, it looked like he was throwing up in his bucket, after the fourth round. So I think that, somebody tried to tell me, one of Donald's friends tried to tell me, he's like, oh, yeah, well, Blake was better in that fight and he was avoiding him more and he was cutting angles more and he was dealing with a dangerous guy. And I was like, he was trying to cut angles. And when I fought him, I just didn't let him cut angles on me. I just chased him down, marched him down, and kicked his fucking ass. You know what I mean? So, you know, in my opinion, no. I think that Blake is honestly, I mean, he's getting better, but I don't think he's looking any better in his fights from the first time that I fought him. He keeps getting knocked out and TKO'd, and he only has one win in the organization. And yeah, I mean, I didn't think much of either of their performance in that fight, basically.
You're a Florida guy. The promotion makes frequent trips down to Florida, but it feels like you're
I
on the
can't get a
road
fight
quite a
here.
bit. Yeah, you're
I
on the
can't get
road
a fight
quite a
here. There's a fight in Miami the week after the Prospect Series, and I'm going to go down there and watch it as a fan instead of fighting at it.
You're going to be here in my hometown in the main event. I'm planning to follow you to go be in the crowd over there and do some media myself. But
In
is there a
Miami?
motivating? Yeah, in Miami. I'm going to go down the
Oh,
week
okay,
after I got
nice.
family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get a hold of me. We'll do an in-person interview.
Oh, cool. I'll get you both weeks because I'll be here in Albuquerque and then we'll talk after. Um,
Perfect.
you gain anything though from this constant underdog role that you're put into? Some guys, they find that chip and they're able to, really thrive with that chip on their shoulder. It motivates them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so for myself. Everybody's different, and I think that coming up the way that I come up through fighting also kind of helps me with that. Like all through my professional MMA career, I was always like an underdog regional fighter fighting like some of the better guys in the regional organizations, you know what I mean? And so I kind of think just having that mentality and plus the thing in Florida, like I fought twice in Florida, once in Tampa, that's 4 hours away. And then once in Miami, that's like 8 hours away. So even when I fight and when I fought there, I fought local guys to that area. So it's still like I'm kind of the out of towner fighting the local guy every time. And for me, it definitely, I feel like it builds, your confidence and stuff like that. And there's definitely, when you look at the roster, there's a lot of guys. When you look at the roster, I break it down like there's guys that go and fight out of state that don't have a lot of success. And there's guys that fight out of state that do find a lot of success. And then there's guys on the roster that never fight outside of their hometown. They only fight when the organization comes to them. So, like Mike Richmond type fighter, you know what I mean? He kind of made the beginning of his career in BKFC on going to everybody's hometown and fighting the main event guy and fighting the local dude. And yeah, I definitely think it builds your confidence a lot higher when you are able to go and do that.
Is there anything particular that you took away from the first trip coming down here? You fought Wilfredo Santiago in Albuquerque. Anything that you take away from that experience, whether it was, the elevation wasn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be, to, hey, I know where I want to go find a sauna this time.
Yeah. So Albuquerque, the first time when I fought Will, I'm still actually I really don't even care about it anymore. But everybody knows I wasn't happy about the stoppage in that fight. I got a cut on my lip that made him doctor stop it after the first round, even though I was ready to go. I felt fine. I felt like I got Will with a good little combination in the last 20 seconds of the round. And it also looked like he hurt his knee at one point in that fight when he was leaping in at me. So I was like extremely pissed off at the commission for stopping that fight when they did. However, now, you know what I mean? I already know because even when I went into the fight after that, into a co-main event, I know that the higher you are on the card, the less likely they are to stop fights due to cuts and different things like that because they don't want to be a lackluster main event or a co-main event. So, I get cut a lot. I seen in comments he said he wasn't going to get cut. And I've seen some people saying, yeah, don't get cut, save me the work. Some physicians from the New Mexico Commission saying, no cuts. And I was like, you guys better get the fucking stitches ready because we're both going to be super cut up. If you think I'm going to go out there and just let this guy get away with not getting cut, you're out of your mind. But besides that, honestly, just the commission thing, the altitude was fine. I did O2 training, and I'm doing O2 training again before I go there because there's, I'm in Florida, so we're at sea level and it's a mile in the air out there. So I'm completely aware of it and I'm building towards it. And when I did it last time, I felt completely fine during warmups and the little bit of work that I got to do in the first round. Like, I felt completely fine, and I took, shots and damage, and I still didn't feel gassed by any means going into the second round. So, besides the commission thing, I don't take away anything else from it. I actually like it. It's a nice little town. Good dispensaries there.
Always love to hear that one. Always love to hear compliments about the hometown. Do you feel like your propensity to be cuttable is something that makes you like adjust your style now? Once you recognize that, you're like, shit, I cut easy in a sport where a cut at any point. We saw like Christine Faria, Bick Rawlin, a cut totally changes the complexion of that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think just every fight, I'm, obviously every fight you want to learn, you want to adapt and take away from it. And not only just the cuts, but I mean, the last fight in general, like the shot that Dakota hit me with was a fucking devastating shot that really messed me up and hurt my eye and damaged me and cut me pretty good. So not even just the cuts, but yeah, going through that in the last fight, I got to adjust my style, and I did make strides to do that after my last fight. I went down to Miami and met with Tyler Goodjohn for a couple of days, and he did some mitt work with me for a couple of days down there, and that really helped, to work with over a 10 fight vet like him that's been doing it for a long time and get pointers from him. I've been working in like a traditional boxing gym a lot for training for all my fights, so that's kind of the looks that I get. And I was just telling people today, I'm even look at some of my old opponents, the way you hold your hands, when you block these punches between a boxing glove and a regular hand makes a real big difference. And the style is completely different. And the cutting, obviously, you can be winning a fight. You can be winning the fight and get cut and then have to have it stopped. And it's like, well, fuck, you know what I mean? Now you just lost because of something as simple as a cut. And same thing with the cuts. I've had cuts like that one on my lip in New Mexico where I didn't even know I had a fucking cut on my lip in the corner. Like my corner didn't even tell me that there was a little cut on my lip. I wasn't even thinking about it until the doctor stopped me and looked at me. It was like, oh no, this fight's over. I was like, what the hell? And I'd seen myself on the screen and I'm like, oh yeah, I got a cut on my lip, So there's ones you can receive where you can keep going. And then there's like in the Francesco Ricci fight where he cut my lip and it fucking exploded from the inside out. And I beat the count, but got up and Dan Miragliotta's looking at me like, can you continue? And I'm like, dude, yeah, no, I don't think I can continue. I can beat the count, but that doesn't mean that I can keep fighting. Like my lip was just, torn to pieces. So cuts, yeah, you got to be aware of them. But like I said, even more so than getting cut or knowing that I'm able to cut a lot, like the last fight is like another one that was like a real eye opener to where I got to change up my style. I can't take this kind of damage every fight because, I had some serious eye damage after the last one. Everything's fine, but, one wrong shot and you rip your retina or detach your retina or, who knows what. So, yeah, I've definitely been trying to improve my game and adapt.
Does it feel strange? Like, what is that process like of going from somebody that's thinking offensive first to trying to utilize more of that defense?
Yeah, it definitely is strange. Like I was thinking back towards when I used to, do MMA, and basically I was just a kickboxer. And I was thinking also, amateur. I know a couple amateur MMA fighters right now, and I think about their kind of style, and it's like, for a long time you can get away with just being aggressive, staying on the center line, and just fucking throwing down and banging with guys, and whoever's the most durable is going to be the one that ends up standing. You know what I mean? But once you get more and more higher level, you begin to realize like, man, that young man style of fighting of just keeping on the center line, keeping my head biting down on my mouthpiece and going doesn't work. You got to be more smart and evasive, and especially when you don't wear gloves, because the cutting is just so happens so often. So yeah, it's different. It's hard for me, but I love learning stuff. Like I can sit around and talk about fighting with people and switch stance and open stance and kicks and punching and different techniques and shit like that with people all day. So, I love to learn new stuff and I want to keep learning new stuff. I was just told somebody I felt like Dakota in my last fight, he progressed a lot from the fight that he had before to that one because he was throwing punches and shit a lot different than the way I'd seen him previously doing in all his video. So it kind of just goes to show like you've got to keep progressing and keep learning. You can't just kind of stay where you are doing the same shit because it's not going to get you by for very long.
And I've heard you got a karate background. You were a kickboxer, primarily inside of the cage. So, how much do you feel like your style varies from battleground to battleground? You know what I mean? From different sport.
It's definitely way different. And even my kickboxing now, like I'm, obviously even better kickboxer now than when I started bare knuckle 3 years ago. But my style is beginning to really change. Like I just watched the first toe the line fight that I had with Kane a while back and made some edits on it. And I have like a very karate style, like I'm bouncing on my feet. I'm kind of got that bounce going, like very martial arts style. And now I kind of got a little bit more of a boxer style where I plant my feet more in my punches, learning, just hand fighting and then kickboxing are just like totally different from the way that you set up your punches, the way you plant your feet. If I'm going to just throw my hands, I know I can plant my feet different if I'm going to throw my hands and then finish with a kick afterwards. So I'm getting better at learning and being able to change them both up. I still train. Oh, excuse me. I still train kickboxing like twice a week because I just like to do it for my hips. I feel like nothing really works my hip flexors as well as like throwing hard roundhouse kicks on a bag and stuff. So I'm just I just keep trying to get better, man. Like I said, my coach is my karate sensei is a huge inspiration to me. He's 66. And there's never a day that he'll come in the gym and I'll be like, hey, let me show you something, coach. And he'll be like, oh, no, 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 no. This is the way. And that's just the way it is. He'll always be like, yeah, show me. I'll check it out. I'll try it out. And so, like I said, it's just a huge inspiration that at 66 to still be open-minded and learning and teaching and also taking in new information as well.
There's a lot that you've thrown at us here. You've also mentioned blood quite a few times. So, is that something you've grown to just expect that with bare knuckle, that these fights are going to be bloody wars?
Yeah, I think that you can't fight bare knuckle and be like, I don't want to get cut. Even like I said, with him being like, he's not going to cut me, it's kind of almost just a fucking stupid thing to say, really. I mean, I might not cut him because, like I said before, I don't cut guys a lot. I get cut a lot because I get hit in my eyes and around my orbitals, but I don't cut guys a lot because I try to hit them like right in their jaw and, on the bottom of their ear area and shit. And you don't really cut in those spots very much. So it all just depends. But yeah, I mean, you got to be willing to go through it. And, I can, when you fight in that ring, when you walk in, usually unless you're the very first fight of the night, you can like smell blood in the air, when you step in the ring. And it's just like the pressure thing that I was talking about earlier. Everybody's different, you know what I mean? And some people are like a shark when they smell blood and they fucking focus and their eyes dilate and they get violent. And then some people kind of smell blood or see blood and they're like, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be away from that. So it's definitely, like I said, it goes back to the pressure thing. That there's a saying from a movie I like that pressure changes everything. Some people focus and some people fold. So like I said, it just depends on what kind of person you are. You can work on it mentally and stuff like that. But I think you either got it or you don't.
You feel like this specifically in this equation going against Donald, how much does the 9 fights to 2 fights in bare knuckle benefit you? You've had that experience towing that line so many times.
Yeah, I think it's a huge benefit for me. I mean, I think it's a good benefit for me. You could say the same thing for him because he's got like twice as much professional combat experience as I have. So, you can almost argue the same thing for him. But I did see in a comment, like we had a little back and forth a little bit. And one of the comments he made was that he's still learning and he's still adapting to the sport, which I understand. Like I am as well. Like I just mentioned, we all are every fight. But I told him, I was like, I'm not the one that you want to be learning on the job with. You know what I mean? You better kind of have it figured out and be like, I know what it is I want to do out there because, I'm not the best fighter, I know, with my record and stuff like that, but I'm also extremely violent and fucking I'll throw caution to the wind just to get one back in on you. And like I said, if you think you don't want to get cut, then you don't want to be fighting me because I don't care who gets cut or if we go 1 round or 6 rounds, I'm going to be in your face for the entire thing. So if you're still trying to figure it out, I'm probably not. Another thing he said was he likes to do it kind of like as a hobby. And I'm like, this, fighting people with bare fists is not a hobby. Go build model trains or some shit. You know what I mean? This stuff.
I've seen on your Tapology goes all the way back to like 2015 as an amateur. When though did we fully start this journey and what drew you towards martial arts combat sports?
Yeah. So on topology, I mean, like, um, my entire record, my entire amateur MMA record isn't on there. My amateur record was actually 8-4, and it only shows like I think 1-3 as an amateur on line because the majority of my fights were done and like they kept them in a booklet that was different for some reason. But yeah, I've been doing this for 13 years. So whatever year that puts it at,
Oh,
been at it
2011
for
then.
yeah. So since I did my first amateur fight, and like I said, I went 8-4 as an amateur MMA fighter. I won an amateur belt. I fought a lot of guys in the area that are in MMA promotions now and in game bred now and stuff like that. I fought a lot of professional MMA fighters in the area that made it to Bellator. And I don't think I fought any guys that made it to UFC, but a lot of guys that have, been around for a while. And like I said, I feel like it's tempered me as a fighter to come up, fighting the hardest fights and always being kind of like an underdog fighter and still being able to find a mediocre amount of success against fights when I was supposed to lose, you know what I mean? As opposed to some guys who kind of just fight, almost the other side of what it is I'm talking about. It's a regional MMA fighter. He fights in the local promotion that the owner of his gym promotes, and he's 7-0 against guys that are not very good. You know what I mean? Like that's a thing that happens a lot now, and that'll get you to the UFC, but it's not going to make you the greatest fighter in the world.
Is that where your goals line up? Like, what do you want to do? I know everybody wants to be a world champion. Everybody wants to be rich, but where do your goals line up at?
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to be champion. I had a lot different perspective of fighting when I started, when like UFC was really booming and, everybody's trying to make it to the UFC. And my thought process was like, oh, I'll just be a fighter and make it to the UFC and I'll just fight for a living. And, that's just going to be how I'll do it. And then you realize all the work and dedication and time and money and shit you got to put into this and how things got to align just right. There's some people that got talent but kind of never really make it or get the proper training to make it. And same thing with championships. The championships are just to kind of keep you striving to being the best, But I mean, and nowadays in this age, it almost seems like it's more coveted to, like in BKFC to like try to get that Mike Perry fight or something like that and go off and make, $500,000 to fight him or whatever, as opposed to being the champion and, just kind of making this amount of money. So for me, I just want to fight, man. I don't want to build myself up too much and be like, I want to be the champion. I just want to, my co-main event, the co-main event in my last fight was to get into the top 5 of the organization, and I fell short. So I don't belong in the top 5 right now. But that doesn't mean that at the end of the year that I can't work my way back up and try to break into the top 5 or give me a fight that'll get me there. And then maybe next year be in title contention. They got the Karate Combat crossover thing happening. They said they're going to do something with them this year. I'm extremely interested to see what it is that they do and seeing about getting a fight over there, or like I said, bringing some of their guys over and we can bare knuckle Muay Thai fight in the BKFC ring like they did in Thailand. I'd be extremely interested in doing either one of those. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I just want to fight.
Just want to continue to fight. The last one you said was to get into the top 5. Now you have a main event. Is there just a hunger also to get back in the win column? The last two haven't worked out that way for you.
Yeah, man. Last year, it's last year now. 2 fights, the first one in New Mexico, everybody basically considered, even the organization basically considered it a dud because I lost that fight to Will there, and then they gave me a co-main event for my next fight. So they kind of knew it was a little bit of a bullshit kind of situation without saying it, you know what I mean? And now that I'm sorry, I forgot what we were talking about. I trailed off. What was the question?
Just about wanting to get a dub back in the win, just one
Oh
in the win
yeah,
column.
so I'm sorry. So I had that dud in New Mexico, and then the last fight with Dakota. By the time that was in May last year, so by the time I fight now, it's gonna have been like 7 or 8 months in between the 2 fights, and I was laid out. I couldn't train for a long time with the damage to my eye, and so it's gonna be like ever since I started BKFC, the longest I went in between fights was 6 months. And I fought in like 4 times in one year, and now I've only fought twice in one year. So I'm ready to get back in there. I'm ready to get the win. And even more so, I'm ready to show my abilities, man. Like the last fight was 1 minute of the first round. The fight before that was only 1 round with Will. I haven't got to go 5 rounds since I fought in Tampa. So I just want to get in there and show my full potential and the skills that I do possess, and that I am, top 5 quality for BKFC against the right opponent.
Noah Cutter, we'll see you January 27th. I appreciate you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk to me.
I appreciate it. I hope that wasn't too wordy, man.